Okay, so this one is actually kind of wild. OpenAI is on pace to lose about $27 billion this year. And this is on a $40 billion revenue run rate. The good thing is, it's actually worse than that. Their biggest customers, the ones that make them the most revenue, are their least profitable. But the real good news is that the Codex subscriptions, the $200 a month subscriptions, those good ones, unfortunately can cost $14,000 per month to actually serve. Sam Altman is on the record basically saying that people are using these tools more than they expected them to. And so they're kind of okay with losing money on it on purpose in broad daylight. But here's why this matters to literally anyone and everyone, and not just OpenAI. The company has committed over $1 trillion to infrastructure over the next few years. $1 trillion. And they're reportedly trying to go public with a valuation of over $1 trillion very soon. So you've got a company burning tens of billions of dollars a year, promising to spend $1 trillion or more, and trying to IPO with over $1 trillion price tag, all while admitting that they're losing money on their own paying customers. That's the exact math. And I think that exact math is the reason that the markets have been so volatile. And that's why Wall Street is basically calling the entire industry a potential bubble. Because if the single best funded AI company on the planet can't make the numbers work, what happens to literally everyone else building on top of it? This is the actual stuff I spend my time on. Basically the money and the infrastructure behind AI. Over the last about 90 days, OpenAI has made 4 quiet moves. 4 things back to back that barely made the headlines on their own. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand what's actually going on here better than most people that are actually covering this, including people who are getting paid to understand this for a living. They released the GPT 5.6 Soul model, a frontier class model, and they basically slashed the cost so that it's about 1/3 of some of their biggest rivals. Secondly, they connected ChatGPT Work and ChatGPT Codex, as some people might know it, into a singular canvas. People who cannot write a line of code are the biggest users of OpenAI's biggest coding tool. Sit with that for a second. It's not about coding anymore. It's not a subscription, not a price cut, not a bundle. Move 4 is OpenAI building its own chip.
Gentlemen, thanks to you both for being here. Greg, let me just start with you. We spoke to you last October when you and Broadcom unveiled this effort, and I'm sort of curious.
It's called Jalapeño, and on the surface, it sounds like a chip, but it doesn't fix $26 billion. And it's not $26 billion of spiciness. Because this isn't about the chips being fast. It's about why speed on this specific chip for this specific job is worth more to OpenAI's bank account than almost anything else they could have built. And that's what I actually want to break down for you. Because this is the part that I think actually starts to make sense of why OpenAI is doing what they're doing. So here's why you should actually care about this, especially if you're building with AI right now. Agents, automations, whatever you're doing. Every time an AI agent calls a model, it's paying for exactly the kind of expensive setup that we've been talking about this whole video. And that is costs and speed. Every time an AI agent calls a model, there's few things that come into question, right? You're going to have your speed being a super important variable. You're going to have the success of the answer as well as your cost. The interesting thing is this, though. All of the money was going into the training of these models to make them good enough, right? How do we race to being able to get to a point where we have good enough models to do really good work? Well, now I think we've gotten to that point. And inference, where a lot of these conversations are, is where the focus is going. And inference is all about speed. So now the whole industry, and this chip proves it, is fighting over something else that's entirely different. How fast and how cheap can you run the model that you've already trained? And Jalapeño is the first real physical proof that OpenAI thinks that this fight is winnable. Per the benchmark that OpenAI presented literally today at Hot Chips, we're talking up to 4 times more responsiveness, close to 4 times lower end-to-end latency, and up to 100 times better performance per watt compared to GPUs running ChatGPT right now. 100 times, not 10%, not double. 100 times more efficient on paper on the exact workload that's bleeding OpenAI $27 billion a year.
Have that kind of capabilities, you will get a chip, as Greg put it, that is superb, state of the art, and there's no question it is.
When inference gets that much faster and cheaper, it doesn't just save money. They're going to need to be freaky fast. And with tooling like this and solutions like this, agents can start acting in much more. So this is the good thing here. Faster and cheaper inference doesn't just make AI agents better. Let's just zoom out with me for a second here. Google has its own chips. Amazon has its own chips. And now OpenAI does too. So every single major AI lab has basically independently decided the exact same thing. They're not going to depend on NVIDIA forever, no matter how good their hardware is. And
answering your question, it has always been our aspiration to do that.
It's buried deep in the spec sheet here, not the headline. Basically, for them to actually hit that 100 times efficiency number, OpenAI is running the math that they're doing at a much lower level of precision than usual. Think of it like them basically rounding all the numbers, rounding all the answers, basically doing as much rounding as possible so that they can trade precision for speed. There's a real technical name for it. It's called MXFP4. And if you ever want to look it up, go for it. But the plain version is they're trading precision for speed and cost. And that trade has a real track record that has been documented where it basically can quietly introduce mistakes that a pure speed benchmark would never catch, because a speed benchmark is only really looking at the speed, right? How fast is it actually going? It's not looking at whether the answer was actually right. Nobody who's currently talking about these headlines and how good the chip is actually talking about the real question here, right? But I think I am, because that's genuinely the job here, right? Figuring out where, if there are any corners being cut, or if OpenAI really is going to be as competitive in the hardware space, how does it fit in? How does it work? How were they able to do this? If you told me that sentence a year ago, I'd probably say that you were making it up. But here's what I would actually do with this information today if I were you. Every single response that you get from ChatGPT right now is running on hardware that's mid-transition, almost like live while you're using it. You're watching one of the most expensive experiments in the entire industry happen in real time. Watch what happens to API pricing over the next 6 months. Because when inference gets cheaper industry-wide, that's always where it's going to show up first. And when it does, go back to stress testing anything that you built and every assumption that you've had about AI being slow and expensive. Because that assumption is going to age badly fast. That's really the game that we're in right now. It's not about who has the best model. It's who can run it the cheapest without quietly breaking it. And it's not really a chip question. It's kind of an evaluation question. And it's the kind of thing that I like digging into every single week. If you want to actually build things with AI that hold up, not just watch the stuff happen from the sidelines, let me know what you think is going to happen next. Thanks for watching with Dude AI. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.